Habakkuk. Habakkuk. In the Bible, it's a book where people seldom look for wisdom in Habakkuk. Okay, well, that's for fun, but it's also true. Not very many people study Habakkuk. Preachers don't choose it very often as a text. Now, it is in the lectionary. That's a 3-year cycle of readings that are chosen and then repeat every 3 years for pastors if they want to have kind of an overview of the Bible. And they sometimes choose to preach from it. But only a few verses of Habakkuk are in that lectionary reading. I couldn't find the words in the lectionary that I've liked best from Habakkuk. Those come from the 3rd chapter. But since the Bible is very large and Habakkuk is only 3 chapters long, that could be the explanation. Now, Habakkuk, his ministry came about 600 years before the birth of Jesus, in the year 612 BC. And in the days of Jesus, Habakkuk was being avidly studied by the community living by the Dead Sea. Now, you've heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and one of those scrolls is a commentary on Habakkuk. The scholar felt that Habakkuk foresaw events in his own time. In other words, 600 years before, Habakkuk was seeing what would happen in the time of Jesus. Of course, the prophets have frequently been interpreted that way. See, the prophet, they'll look at the prophet and say, aha, this is foretelling, this is foreseeing events that are happening exactly that way in today's world. Now, does that mean everyone is wrong? Well, I don't think the answer is as simple as yes or no. We generally misinterpret what biblical prophecy means. It is often considered a prediction of the future. Now, I've known also pastors or writers who said, well, they were called to be prophets. They don't mean a prophet, as a rule, as a predictor of the future. When they have talked about being a prophet, it's when they figure that what they're going to say is going to be unpopular. That self-description probably comes from the fact that the prophets frequently did say things that were unpopular. In fact, there were generally 2 classes of prophets in ancient times. There were the popular ones who said what the people wanted to hear, and there were the biblical ones who said what they believed God wanted the people to hear. Biblical prophecy is not a prediction of the future. Even when the prophets occasionally talked about something that they felt was impending, what the prophet was doing was always making an announcement of God's message and God's truth. And this means that the words of prophecy can apply to 1st century Israel and to 21st century America. Now, when I started working on a message for this Sunday, I had planned on using the verses from the 3rd chapter. But it's a short book, and I decided to reread all of Habakkuk to kind of get in the right mindset. I was stopped by the words in chapter 2, verse 3. I've read them before. I've read all of Habakkuk before, but these really stopped me. In the New Revised Standard Version, these words are, "For there is still a vision for the appointed time." And suddenly to me, these words were like rain on parched land. For there is still a vision for the appointed time. Habakkuk is written as a dialogue between the prophet and God. Habakkuk is weary, distressed, anxious. The book begins with saying, "Oh Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not listen?" In fact, some scholars say Habakkuk's a little unusual because he's pretty honest on this. And yet, that's not unusual. There are many times in the Psalms, for example, that they are equally honest about their feelings. I had, before reading Habakkuk, I had just read over the lectionary readings for today in case there was something I wanted to preach about. And Habakkuk's words sound like an echo of today's Psalm 13. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? Well, if that's how we feel right now, we're in good company. The greatest and most faithful, the ones that got the words written down in the Bible, they sometimes felt the same way. What Habakkuk heard from God is not a placebo and it's not a happy pill. For there is still a vision for the appointed time. It speaks of the end and does not lie. If it seems to tarry, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Now this was obviously a difficult verse to translate. I looked at other translations and they come out different. One translation didn't see the vision speaking of the end, but said that the vision will not lie, and though it may take some time, wait for it. Another wonderful translation didn't talk about the end at all. It said the vision presses on to fulfillment. Now it's clear that most of us in the human race are not a very patient group. We don't like waiting for anything. We are the generation of seeking instant gratification. There's a lot of been a critique of that. But impatience is not always a bad quality, because we shouldn't be patient with the fact that there's hunger or injustice or pain in the world, things of this sort, especially not if we can do something to help make it better. Years ago, for example, I read the inspiring good news story of a woman who lived in a community down south. I think it was in Texas. She wasn't a community leader. She didn't have any kind of political pull. She had no experience in this kind of thing. And it was a year or so before after the Hurricane Katrina. And one day she read that even after a year, there were still large numbers of people living in homeless shelters in her city after having been evacuated from the hurricane. And it struck her that this was unacceptable. So she got busy, she worked with others, and within a month or so, every single refugee from the hurricane was in proper housing. Thank God for impatient people like that. I really like the translation of the vision pressing on to fulfillment, because that one isn't just about waiting. It's awareness that God is active in the world today. And sometimes God is active in ways that we can see, and sometimes in ways that we can't. But the vision and the truth is pressing on to fulfillment. There's been a lot of writing and talk about the challenges to mental health that 2020 has given us. It seems like there's just been one story after another of things that we have to be concerned about. It's ironic because in 2020 we don't have 2020 vision. And maybe that's why Habakkuk's words seem so refreshing to me. It's a reminder that we should look for and celebrate the signs of God's activity in the world, the signs that we can see that the vision is pressing on to fulfillment. We should witness to that. We should share the news that there is vision. There is a pressing on to fulfillment in 2020. We are called also, though, to have faith for the activity that we cannot see, to wait where we should, and patiently work for it in every place that we can, because there is a vision and a truth. It is pressing on to fulfillment in us and in the world. Amen.